So welcome to part 2 of the naturals video. We're talking about natural or dry processed coffee. And in the first part we did some tasting of naturals, and we talked about how they taste different in the cup, how they roast differently, how the green coffee looks different, how it grinds differently. Okay, well, it doesn't grind any differently, but in this part of the video, we're going to look at natural coffees using macro, and we're going to start by looking at the pods, which are the whole dried fruit of the tree that are just laid out. And okay, well, this shot's not going to work because you're looking like up my nostrils, so let's try it differently.
So after the fruit is picked from the tree, it's dried, and this is what the dried coffee cherry looks like. Part of the reason that traditional dry process areas like in Ethiopia and Yemen wanted these to do their own processing and to hull it themselves is this here, and that is kisher. Some people are calling it cascara. And that's the skins of the coffee cherry that is used for a tea in these places. So they had a kind of a second product that they were getting from dry processing. So the difference when you see green unwashed coffee or natural dry processed coffee and wet process washed coffee is fairly profound, and it's kind of hard to get that across in a video. This is actually a washed Ethiopian coffee that we have here, and it's got a more bluish green color, and on the outside of it you see less of the chaff. It's called silver skin, and it becomes chaff when you roast it. Now compare that, let me just scoot that over, to a dry process Ethiopian. And this is a real high quality grade 1 Quaker Yirgacheffe that we have. But I think you can see that on some of these there's almost a reddish appearance, and that's where the fruity mucilage that dried in the intact cherry clung to the bean when it was hulled, and you see a more yellowish appearance. We'll talk about exactly why in the second part of this video. One of the more controversial coffees is Yemen dry process coffees, and you'll see lower grade Brazils too that have these appearances, and you see a lot more variation. If I push that out there, that's a whitish bean. That's probably going to produce a slight defect flavor in the cup. You see paleness and real variety of shapes there, with also some whitish spots in it around the edges, especially indicating a little bit of age on that coffee. So dry process coffees can span the gamut from being very uniform with the real high quality ones to much less uniform, and that shows in the roasting too. So let's look at some roasted coffee. Now, coffee is an agriculture product, so when you process it, cook it, roast it, it's always going to have variation in the appearance. This is a washed coffee. This is a Guatemala actually, and you'll see this is a light roast that we use for cupping, so you'll see a lot of veininess in the beans, a lot of texture in the surface. It hasn't really smoothed out. But there's a uniform color from bean to bean. Now, this is going to be a little bit of an unfair comparison, but let's look at a dry processed Brazil. And let's see if we can see that. Now, like I said, this is a lighter roast we were using for cupping. But I think you can see, let's flip over a couple of these, that there's some coffee in here that what we call it is semi-Quaker. Definitely a lighter appearance from bean to bean, a more uneven appearance, and some are noticeably lighter. And semi-Quaker comes from the fact that the coffee wasn't entirely ripe when it was picked. And so it doesn't have the compounds to have a proper browning reaction when it's cooked. So, and I don't know how well this comes across, but that's an issue with dry processing. This is a coffee we did not buy because we don't buy coffees with issues like that. But I think it illustrates that you can expect some variation even in the high quality dry process coffees. And in fact, I have our grade 1 Yirgacheffe, which is one of the better Yirgacheffes, and even here there's some warts. Right there is a Quaker. So compare that to the coffee around it and you'll see a noticeably lighter appearance. So sometimes, a little human intervention after roasting, just removing this one Quaker bean right there, is going to improve the cup quality.